It's not just to do with the environment, although there is a green dimension to it. And I think it's clear for all of us that global reordering is taking place. Whether or not this is being driven by European networks or by other forces is perhaps a question that we can discuss later on. Although it's called green, we refer to the project as really looking at the role of the EU in a multipolar world. But I think it's important that we perhaps start by thinking what we mean by a multipolar world. What is multipolarity? Can we interrogate what we mean by polarity and multipolarity? Now, when we think of polarity, we think of magnets attracting and perhaps also repelling. But let's deal with the attracting part for the moment. And economics is clearly part of this agenda of attraction, not just for the European pole, but for any other pole that might exist within the global order. And it's clear that economic problems can lead to a weakening of that magnetic attraction. And I think we might question whether the extent to which Europe's problems have been perhaps exaggerated as a source of a weakening of the attraction, but some sort of weakening is clearly there. But the point of today is to go beyond economics and think of other ways in which attraction takes place or might take place in this multipolar world. There's much more to the European Union, there's much more to polarity and potential polarity than just economics. Security, energy, environment, food, a whole range of non-traditional security issues are at the heart often of what attracts. And perhaps sometimes I think that we forget about the security origins of the European project and sometimes focus a little bit too much on contemporary economic problems and forget some of the deep security problems that beset Europe before the creation of the European project. We also might think about the European Union as a model or an example to other parts of the world for dealing through cooperation, collaboration with the issues that face them, even if they don't necessarily want to directly copy or emulate the European Union. But other things that attract are norms, values, principles, goals, aims, and objectives, sometimes called soft power. And this all comes together to form part of what may or may not lead to Europe being a pole or other places becoming poles in the global economy. But magnets don't always just attract. If you're on the wrong side of the pole, they also repel. And I have a bit of a problem with the concept of polarity. Perhaps I shouldn't say this as it's embedded in the project that I'm coordinator of. But the idea of polarity seems to me to have connotations of the Cold War, where you have one camp or bloc that comes together, sticks together, coheres, but is in some ways repelled from another bloc that comes together, sticks together, and coheres. Polar opposites. Is that the world we really live in today? I mean, I think even if we forget the physics problem, or the problem of physics of having more than two poles, a North Pole, a South Pole, and perhaps a Middle Pole, or whatever it is, an East Pole, or West Pole, are we really in a world today where groups come together, stay together, stick together, cohere together, and are repelled by counter-groups? It doesn't seem to me to be the world that we're living in. It seems to me we're living in much more of a loose, fluid coalition, a world where countries might come together over one issue, but perhaps disagree with each other over other issues, might move apart over time, and might come together over different issues. For example, China, a country I spend a lot of my time studying, might come together with India over environmental issues, but indeed they might disagree over economic issues, over norms, over human rights, over security. So the aim of this project, as I see it, isn't just to identify whether Europe is a pole or isn't a pole, or what the other poles are or may be. It's instead to search for different sources of power, different sources of attraction, and those issues where perhaps Europe doesn't quite have the power and attraction that we might want it to. So the aim of the project is partly to look at the internal dimensions of governance within the European Union, with a specific emphasis on identifying networks within the European Union. and in a secondary way, how these networks interact with external actors outside the EU. But perhaps most pertinently for today, we're also trying to identify different dimensions of power and different ways in which the EU interacts with other parts of the world in different issue areas. We want to find out where Europe has power, where it has attraction, and those areas perhaps where it has less so. So we're looking at finance and trade. We're looking at security, including a whole range of non-traditional security, human rights, human security. We're looking at norms, we're looking at values. We're looking at region building and regionalisation. And we're looking at how the EU acts in and with multilateral organisations. And if we can identify those areas where the EU attracts and other areas where it doesn't, the key question then is why? Why is it in this area that the EU has power, has attraction, has soft power? Is it to do with legitimacy of the EU as an actor? Is it to do with capacity of the EU as an actor? Or is it to do with the willingness of member states to actually give the EU that legitimacy and power and capacity to act? So these are the big questions that we've set ourselves for the next, well, we've already just finished the first year, ongoing for the next 3 years of the Green Project. And these are some of the questions that we've been talking about over the last day here in this wonderful building. As part of our agenda, we want to have deep academic debates and discussions, but we don't want just to be confined to academic debates and discussions. A key part of our agenda is to go beyond academic communities, to find out what other people want to hear, whether our research is salient to them, other opinions, and to have interaction with wider communities. And this is why our partnership with ISPI is so important to the programme as it goes forward. So with those few words of introduction to the project, we have, I think, what is a very impressive website, which I urge you to go and have a look at, with lots of papers and also videos and multimedia sections to it. With those words of introduction, I would once again thank you for coming, thank the panellists, and thank ISPI for hosting this event. Thank you.